Welcome to A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life. This is the place to be for stories to inspire and uplift when life doesn't go according to our plans. I'm Laura Muirhead, your host and the reigning queen of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life. I can't wait to share the plot twist stories of my guests that will inspire and uplift you when life didn't follow the plan, right here on A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life podcast. Hello, and welcome to this episode of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life. I'm your host, Laura Muirhead, and I am so happy to welcome today to this episode, Jen Zwinck. Jen, come and say hello and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do in the world.
Hello, Laura. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so excited to be here. Well, I guess I could start by saying that I can see my life when I look back on two distinct parts. And it's it all comes down to one defining moment that we will get to, but how it has affected my life and how that defining moment has completely changed my life. And this divide between who I was before and who I am now. But today I can call myself, excuse me, a widow advocate. Sometimes I call myself a hope dealer. Sometimes I call myself a radical encourager for other widows. And in 2020, that was when I started my podcast, and it's Widow 180, the podcast. And I started it as a passion project to share stories of hope after loss. And it has completely changed my life and opened up so many doors for me and so many opportunities to meet other widows around the world, to hear their stories, to be inspired by them, and to share their inspiring stories with widows who need to hear stories of hope. And so I also saw the need for community. And just last year, I co-founded a group called the Widow Squad. And this is an online community, but we are starting to do in-person retreats. And we get together once a week on Zoom. And we also have a ton of resources for widows. It's a place to connect and come together to share stories, to share worries, to vent, to learn, to grow, and to figure out what your next step in life is going to be. And if you had asked me 10 years ago if I would be doing this, my life was completely different. Never in a million years did I think that I would be here doing this, but it's been, the last couple of years have been so meaningful to me, and it's the most fulfilling work that I have done in my life. So,
well, it all sounds really amazing, and so we've sort of spilled the beans a bit with what your life-changing event was. Your A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life event was. So tell us a bit about that. Like, this is not, for many reasons, this is not where you expected to be. And let's go back and I believe it was when you were 35 that something dramatically life-changing happened.
So my husband, Brent, and we had been living a normal, suburban life. We met each other in optometry school and moved to Louisiana. And we started our family. We had a little girl. We had bought a house. We both had our set careers, and we were just on this path of life, and I look back at the person that I was, and I was this happy-go-lucky, innocent, you know, untouchable person, right? And um, my husband was in a wedding. His One of our good friends from optometry school was getting married, and so they had this bachelor party that was coming up, and then this was October of 2011, and the bachelor party was in New Orleans, and so he was going to be going out with a bunch of guys, and then staying downtown and staying in a hotel, and then coming home the next day to go to come home and watch the Saints game. So he left to go to the bachelor party. You know, he was rushing out the door. He was running a little bit late, trying to go meet the guys. And it was just like one of those things. He's standing by the door. I just can remember this because this is the last time I saw him. But he said, "How do I look? Do I look okay? You know, does my belt?" Like, I remember I was like, "Yes, you look great. Go, have fun, go." Because this was a guy who never went out. He was kind of a homebody. He loved being home with his girls, and he just wasn't a party kind of guy, you know. But he said he was going to go to this bachelor party because it was our friend, and so he left. And I went over to my parents' house, and I spent the night at their house, and then he was downtown, and he was supposed to text me because I said, "Text me when you get back to the hotel room. It doesn't matter what time it is. I just want to know that you're there." So, 4 o'clock in the morning, I remember waking up and I looked at my phone and he hadn't texted. So I was thinking, he's either out still or he just fell asleep and he forgot. And then 10 o'clock in the morning comes around. We went back to my house because we were going to watch the Saints game. And I was waiting for him to get home. He didn't come home, no text. So I'm texting him, like, "Where are you? What's going on? What time are you going to be home?" And then noon comes around and he's still not home. And the game started. So I was like, "What is happening?" So I started texting the guys that he was with. And I said, "He's not home yet. Have you seen him? What's going on? Or did you guys go to lunch?" Um, and so the one guy texted me and he said, "No, we haven't seen him since last night." He's like, "I'm going to go to the hotel room and check and see if he's there." So I'm sitting there just waiting, and he went to the room. He texted me and he said, he's not in his room. He never came back home. And he said, "Why don't you do this?" He called me and he was like, "You should get down here. I'm going to go to the police. Have your parents watch Claire." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" You know? And so I did. I called my parents. I was like, "Okay, he didn't come back, and I have to go, see what's going on." So I grabbed a couple of pictures of Brent, and I got my parents to watch her, and then I headed downtown. My dad came with me, and then there was a group of us. It was a small group of us, and they were just retracing steps and going back and looking to see, because the last time he was seen was leaving the bar at around 4:30, and he was tired and he wanted to go back to the room. So he left by himself, and he just kind of gave a wave to the guys, and he was like, "I'm done. I'm out. I'm going." And that was the last time they saw him. So he was missing. We spent the next several hours. So by this time it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we weren't having any luck. I was trying to have his cell phone traced to see if we could, find him that way. By the time we were able to do that and figure out where his cell phone was, it was already like 8 o'clock at night. So it was dark. The police had been coming in and going and, retracing steps and asking bartenders and things. But nobody had any answers. So then we get the trace on his phone. That was around 8 o'clock, and it was traced to a junkyard that was probably 3 miles from where he was last seen. So everybody jumps in the cars, and the police were following us, and they said, okay, when we get there, we don't know what we're going to expect, to find. This junkyard, when we pulled up, it's pitch black. It was a massive junkyard with the barbed wire around the top of the fence, with like pit bulls and Dobermans like running around in there, just barking underneath the fence. And so then they called the fire department to come out, and they got the fire trucks out there. They put up the ladders with these big spotlights down into the junkyard because it was a Sunday night. And so they couldn't get in touch with the owner to let us in or anything. So they're shining the lights down. They're trying to search everywhere. And then I remember they kept saying, okay, Jennifer, we need you to call his phone, call now. And then they would shut off all the lights, and they would just look in there to see if they could see the phone light up. And that didn't happen. We never did find it. So we probably did that for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And then there were several detectives that were there. And there was one that came up to me, and he said, ma'am, we're just going to go ahead and do our job, but we just need you to go home and try and get some rest.
No way.
And I was like, did he just say that? Like that's a line from NCIS or something. Just go home and get some rest and let us do our job. And I was like, is this even real? What is even happening? I said, I'm not going home. I don't have my husband. Where is my husband? I'm not leaving, So I think we stuck around for another 20 minutes, but then everybody started leaving. And so we left. We drove to my parents' house because my mom had Claire, who was 2 at the time. And so I got back to their house, climbed in the bed with her, and it was probably around midnight. So of course, and I'm not sleeping. Of course I'm not sleeping. I'm just laying there, frantic, and my heart was pounding. And I kept saying, like, I was kind of like rocking. I mean, it just like panic, And I said, just give me a sign. Tell me a sign. I need a sign. Tell me that you're okay. I need to know that you're okay. Just give me a sign that you're okay. And in the room that we were sleeping in, my mom had this little nightlight that was plugged into the wall because my daughter got scared in the dark. So we had the little nightlight on, and it was casting a shadow. Like there was a plant that was on the dresser, and then it was casting a shadow up on the wall across from the bed. And it was a silhouette of my husband. Silhouette with him just kind of like standing. It was like a full body silhouette. So, I'm sitting in the bed, just kind of like, give me a sign that you're okay. I need a sign that you're okay. And then I look over and I see that. And I was like, nope, I didn't see that. That's not the
crazy.
sign. I said, that's not the sign that I want. That's not the sign. Give me something else. I need a sign that you're okay. Like I just kept saying it. And then I just looked back over and I was like, that's him, that's him. And then I just knew. I was like, whatever happened, and he's gone, in my heart, I knew it. In my head, I was still like, maybe he was arrested. Maybe he's in jail. Maybe he's this. Maybe he went here. I don't know. I was trying to make sense of it. But in my heart, I knew because of that. Like he had given me a sign. And it was plain as day on the wall right in front of me. So the next day was when we got the call from the coroner's office, and I went down there, and it was my parents and my brother were there, and we walked in. They had a big long meeting table, and it was a Brent's picture was upside down on the table, and I went and sat down, and then the coroner was like, "We don't want to believe that this is your husband, but we believe that this is your husband." And he slid the picture over to me, and I turned it over, and and then I was like, and then he took it from me, and I said, "I want to see him." I still didn't believe it. I still did not believe it. And I said, "I want to see him. Is he here? Because I want to see him." And he was like, he's like, "You don't want to see him." And he wouldn't let me see him. Um, so I said something so stupid because I went into shock, and I said, "But we're supposed to go to the pumpkin patch today. You know, we were gonna go get a pumpkin and do some some pumpkin carving." I was like, "No, this isn't him. We're supposed to be going to get pumpkins today." And I just went into total shock, you know. So we left, and then I kind of sort of almost passed out. My brother was kind of holding me, my dad was holding me, and we get in the car, and then it just started this whole whirlwind of the next day. I'm going and I'm picking out a plot, you know, for my husband. What had happened was he had left the bar. He went by himself, like I said. He left, he took a wrong turn, you know. He was supposed to go right to go to the hotel. He went left. That was it. He was 2 blocks from the bar. And a guy had followed him, and I guess he saw that he was by himself, vulnerable on a dark side street, and he hit him on the head. He basically mugged him, took his wallet, so he had no ID. He took his phone, and he just left him on the sidewalk. And then I was told that somebody came by not too long after, but they found him on the sidewalk. They called 911, and that they were trying to revive him in the ambulance, and he was already gone.
Oh my
So
goodness. This is just an unimaginable scenario, like
yeah,
absolutely unimaginable.
yeah,
And I can understand you getting to the point where you were saying, like, no, this can't be true. We're going to the pumpkin patch with our daughter today. Like, he can't be gone. This is our plans. And the fact that, well, I guess, that his wallet was gone, so they didn't ID him, so they had no way to contact you. Clearly,
yeah,
the guy took his phone and just ditched it. And
yep,
I can't even imagine what you were going through. And like you said, here you are. No, I'm supposed to be going to the pumpkin patch, and instead I'm going to plan his funeral and decide where he's going to be buried. And
yeah,
yeah, talk about life going in a different direction than
yeah,
you planned.
yeah. I mean, uh, you know, it's like I said, he wasn't even a guy that went out a lot. Like it was, I was the one that was kind of like, "Go have fun, you know, have a good time, because you never go out." And
Well, and I guess, in general, we tend to not think about those things where we think, no, I'm just a couple blocks from the hotel. I can just walk by myself. It's no big deal. Uh,
mhm,
and yeah, first of all, so sorry, um, it just gives me, like, when you're talking about the shadow on the wall, it's just giving me chills. And to even, I understand when you're saying, Like I can understand you being like, in my heart I knew, but my head is like, nope, it can't be, it can't be, it can't be. And then, even when you're there, with the corners, I want to see, you want the proof, you want to see,
Yes.
you want the evidence. But oh my goodness, it's just unimaginable, unimaginable.
Yeah. Yeah. So then there was, that initial time period after where I was just trying to get through the day to day, right? Like, okay, I still have a 2-year-old. So I'm still a mom, and she requires 100% of my attention. Um, and that was tough. It was really tough. I mean, there's a lot of things, and if you talk to people who go through loss, there's a lot of the business side of things that you have to tend to, of course. Um, Things which I just wasn't prepared. I was not prepared for that to happen, right? No. So I was trying to balance being a mom, um, figure out where if I was gonna go back to work. They gave me, however much time I needed. So I had decided that I was gonna take several weeks off, and I think it was Halloween. Okay, so Halloween weekend. So this was 2 weeks after we had done the funeral the week after. So 2 weeks after he was killed, I was with my mom, and my mom lives like 20 minutes away. So she said, I have to go run these errands. I have to go do this and this. Do you want to just meet me at the McDonald's kind of by my house? We'll grab some lunch and then we'll go. And I said, okay, I'll do that. I had Claire and we weren't doing anything. And so I said, let's go and do that. So we go to McDonald's, and um, we were sitting there having lunch, and I was in the middle of potty training Claire. So she was still kind of in pull ups, and we were figuring all of the potty training stuff. But we had gotten our food and we sat down. And then behind the counter, I could see the workers were kind of talking amongst themselves, and it was getting louder and louder. And then my mom took Claire to the bathroom, and I'm still sitting there, and I'm like, something's going on over there. Something's happening. And then I heard them say, oh, he's coming this way. And then I look out the window on my right, and this police car pulls up and just comes screeching right by the window. The cop jumps out. He runs inside. He's got his gun out like this and goes into the men's bathroom. And then he comes back out, gets in the car, and then screeches away again. And all this time, I'm sitting there and I'm just like slowly eating my fries. And I'm just like, what is happening? What is happening? I live about an hour outside of New Orleans, so I'm not in the city. And it's like Sleepy Town, USA. There's nothing that happens around here. It's very quiet. So when I heard them say, again, behind the counter, this guy had robbed the bank right across the street from the McDonald's, and he had run over to the McDonald's and was hiding like around the building somewhere. So then my mom comes walking out of the bathroom with Claire, and she goes, guess who just went to potty? Just oblivious, right? And I was like, this just happened. This just happened while you were in the bathroom. And I lost it. I mean, I had a full out panic attack. I was hyperventilating. I was crying. I was like, I can't take this. I can't take this violence. Like, there was just violence that was happening and closing in on me and just getting closer and closer in my life. And I was like, I cannot take whatever is happening right now. I can't. And so she grabbed me and she took my shoulders, and we walked outside. We went to the front by the little play area in the front of the McDonald's. And so Claire was playing around, and I'm crying and crying, and my mom's just like, breathe, you just have to breathe. And I was just like, I can't take this. Um, and it was a weird thing that happened. So this is another weird thing. There was a minivan that was kind of pulled up. You know how when they don't have your fries ready and then you have to like wait for your fries. So they told this guy like pull up a little bit. So he had pulled up and he's sitting there in the minivan watching me and watching this scenario happen in front of him with my nervous breakdown in McDonald's. And his window was down. He had the wife and all the kids and all the family. But he was like, excuse me. And I looked over and it kind of like snapped me out of my, panic. And he was like, you have a beautiful daughter. And I was just like, what? And I'm telling you, that was another moment where it was like some kind of divine whatever came through and snapped me out of my state that I was in. And I was like, oh my God, he's right. I'm like, I do have a beautiful daughter. Here she is. I look over, she's playing, their butterflies, like little yellow butterflies that were flying around. And she's like jumping and playing in the butterflies. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, he's right. He's right. He's right. I have a beautiful daughter. I got to just, think about that. And I left the McDonald's and drove home. And I immediately bought 2 plane tickets for Claire and I to go to Turks and Caicos. It's in the Caribbean. This was the place that we always went to for vacation. And it was Brent and I, it was our happy place. And we would go 2 or 3 times a year. And I said, I just need to go and be in a nice, peaceful, calm place and regroup. So I bought our tickets and I said, I'm going to go down there for like a week and a half over Thanksgiving because I didn't want to be home for Thanksgiving. I didn't want to like try and put on the fake smile and pretend that everything was okay. I said, I got to get out of here. So one of my really dear friends came with us for a week. So Claire and I were there for a week and a half, and then my friend was there for a week, and then she left. But we went to Turks and Caicos, and it was fabulous. It was wonderful. It was exactly what I needed. My friend said, you take your time. I'm going to watch Claire. If you want to go walk on the beach, if you just want to lay by the pool, if you just want to relax, I'll take care of her. And I think it was like the second day that I was down there, I turned to my friend and I said, I think I want to live here. And she, my dear sweet friend, is a very type A engineer. And she said, well, let's see if we can make it happen. Let's take a look at your finances and see if we can do this. And I was like, okay. And so the third day that I was down there, I walked, there was like a little kind of shopping center kind of town, little part of town that has, it doesn't have like fast food kind of places, but it's just kind of like the little spot. They had a Century 21 store there, an office there in the little shopping center. And my friend had said, okay, go for your walk. So I went to go walk, and I just happened to walk past the Century 21 office. And I stopped because they had all of the pictures in the window of all the places that were for sale and things like that. So I stopped and I looked, and then I just walked into the office, and they had a lady that was sitting at the front desk. And I just walked right up to her and I said, I think I want to live here, maybe for like a year. And then I started crying. And I was like, I think I want to live here for like a year. And then I just burst into tears. And so she kind of sat back and she was like, okay. And so then she stands up very slowly and she comes around the desk, doesn't know me at all for anything. And she gives me a big hug. And
Goodness.
she just stood there and hugged me for a long time. And then she walked back around the desk and she sat down and she was like, okay, let's talk. And I swear this woman, it was probably like 2 hours that she sat there and she talked to me. I told her like my life story, what had just happened. And she talked to me about all kinds of different things um about grief, about God, about all these different things. And she said, this would be a really good place for you to be. Let's see what we have, you know. So she started helping me. By the time the end of that trip came, this was after our week and a half of being there, I had found a place to stay and they agreed to lease to me for a year. And I said, well, I'm coming back down January 1st. Like, let me go ahead and sign it. So this is end of November and I'm going to sign it for at least a year. And I'm coming back in a month. Like, I'm coming back. So I went home and my dad picked us up from the airport and I got back to my parents' house and I said, I'm gonna go. I feel like this is where I need to be. Logically, it made no sense because I didn't know a single person down there. Not one, except for the lady Sharon in the Century 21. That was now my best friend. So I said, I'm just going to go. And my dad was like, are you sure you want to go for a whole year? Let's, maybe 6 months, maybe do 6 months. And I said, no. I said, here's the thing. The weather is the same every day. It's 80 degrees and sunny every day. I don't have to face the seasons. I don't have to know that it's Valentine's Day. I don't have to know that it's Father's Day. I just wanted to have it all look the same every day so that I didn't have to feel the holidays coming. And so I kind of created this environment for myself to try and ease the pain of what I was going through because I didn't know any other way of dealing with it. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with all of the mess of emotions that was happening inside of me. I had never, ever experienced hurt and pain and suffering and grief like that in my life. And I didn't know what to do with it. So.
Well, and I would imagine you also maybe had some anger towards whoever did this to your husband. And I want to go back for a second. I mean, there's so much about this it's such an incredible story. And I love the idea of this kind of bubble that you were going to live in, that you weren't going to feel each and every holiday, which could have been just, if you wanted to feel it, you could, but you weren't like presented, like smacked in the face with it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you did have your daughter to care for. And how did you even negotiate that with her initially, that daddy's not here anymore? Like, that's a whole nother level of what do you do with that?
Yeah. I know the moment that I had to tell her, and I had gotten some advice. I went to the Children's Hospital in New Orleans, and they kind of talked me through how that conversation should go with her. But because of her age, and there was a lot of research that's been done on this, because there is a certain amount of understanding at that age, and the memories that she does have and the memories that she will have, and then the information that you present to them at whatever stage that they are in. I just remember sitting down with her and drawing out on a piece of paper. I kind of I drew a picture of Brent in the clouds with a halo. I was trying to explain heaven and earth, and this is what happens when a person is no longer here. And it was such a build up to that conversation with her. And then she looks over and says, "Can I have some Halloween candy?" It's like, it's in one ear, not the other. And then with kids that little, it was her processing things definitely at a different pace. Not that she wasn't feeling the loss, but just for her to be able to express it, it's extremely difficult. The thing that I did have on my side, and if you can look at it as something good, is that she was so little that she doesn't have all of those memories and that attachment. Yes, she was attached to her dad and she loved her dad, but at the same time, I think even like the age, like up to 4, they process it this way. Between 4 and 7, they're processing it this way. And so she was just under that age where it probably would have been a lot more difficult as far as her memories go and things like that.
Had she been older?
Had she been a little bit older, even just a little bit older. So what I did do, I mean, going back to what you had mentioned about the anger and the person that did this, he did try to hide, run away. I think took a bus up to Missouri and was trying to hide with some relatives, but then the relatives turned him in. So it was a couple of weeks after. It took the detectives several weeks to find him, but they did find him, brought him back to New Orleans, and then he was in jail from there. We were back and forth on trial dates, and there was meetings with the DA, meetings with what he was going to be charged with. But there was that whole aspect of it that is not in my world. I don't know first degree murder, second degree murder. I don't know these terms. I don't ever watch any of those shows, so I don't know what is even happening and what you're talking about. What did end up happening though is like we had presented a plea deal from like the get-go, from the very first week. And again, it was back and forth and back and forth. We had trial dates set, and then that would get postponed. And then a trial date was set, and then that would get postponed again, months and months and months. So, I mean, we're talking, this went on for years. And finally in 2015 was when he took the plea deal after all that. So this is years, 4 years, and 4 years of me just kind of putting my life on hold and really not being able to like mentally move forward in my life because I felt like I had to put that chapter behind me, and I couldn't. It was out of my hands. So
Yeah,
I was in this situation of kind of a waiting game,
well, even this whole thing with, I would imagine, I want to get back to when you moved to the island, but I want to talk about this other stuff first. When you did you feel like you were kind of during the whole process of like the funeral and like even when you went to McDonald's and that whole thing happened, did you feel like you were kind of just being swept along by a wave of just going along day to day to day? And even when you're describing this situation at McDonald's, I mean, that had to be so triggering to be just like, holy crap, this is what is happening in my world. So I I love that you made this decision to be like, no, I need to remove myself from all of these things and remove my daughter so that we can go somewhere and have some peace and potentially heal, rebuild, whatever that looks
Mhm.
like.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt like my world was closing in, and I had lost control of everything. Just a spiral of losing control of everything. And that was one way for me to control it, was to just remove myself from my previous life, you know? And again, I was trying to, we play these roles, right? We play these roles in life. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I live in the suburbs, this is my house. And then this happens. And then, so then you're like, well, now what? Who am I supposed to be? Okay, life, what is the picture for me? And I was lost. I was so lost. And I said, okay, if that's not going to be my life, then I'm going to go do this. And then it doesn't need to be permanent. Nothing in life is permanent, right? So let me go and try this out. And I so easily, because I have the best parents in the world, they said, come and live with me, come and live with us. We'll take care of you. We need, I can take care of you. And I so easily could have done that and gone to stay with them and curled up in a ball and, just let them raise Claire, because they totally would have done it for me. They would have. And as it was, I felt like I missed like a month of her life, right? Like I was so busy doing all the other things and trying to figure myself out. But I needed to figure out how to be a mom. And I really needed that time with just her so that I could just focus on her and make that happen. Um, so I did, and that was another thing, that it was part of that whole plan that just happened very quickly, removing myself from everything that I knew, going to a place where it's just her and I, so that I can focus on being a mom and being a solo mom. And how do I even do that?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think for a lot of people, that would have been whether you moved in with them or just had them there for support. I mean, that was where your whole support system was. So for a lot of people, that would have been the natural, easiest, probably most logical thing to do. And what a bold step for you to just say, no, we're going to go somewhere else and we're going to do this. So you lived there for the year,
Mhm.
and then just take us on the next steps. I'm all in.
Okay, so here's the amazing thing about living there. I went there to heal. I went there to heal my soul, find myself, be with Claire, process what had happened. And throughout that first year, I had put Claire in a little British school. It's a British island. And there was a little private school there. But she was so little, she could only go like 3 half days a week. It didn't matter to me. It was 3 half days a week. That was great, because then I could drop her off and the tears were rolling as I was dropping her off and leaving the building. And I could get in my car and I could cry, because I really had to balance it. I had to balance being the strong mommy. And then I had to show her that it is okay to cry. When she would see me cry, and I would say, I just miss daddy. I miss daddy. And that's all I can say. So it's not like I didn't cry in front of her, but I had to balance it pretty well. So she did go to school. And because of that, I was able to develop some friendships with some of the moms. Of course, you're dropping off the kids, and then this one has a birthday party. And so you start meeting people that way. It wasn't my intent. I honestly could not care less if I met a single person. But in the end, it really was a blessing. The thing about living on the island is there's a lot of, so the expat community that's there, the husbands are usually there for work. They're either managing a hotel or some kind of resort position, or a chef or something like that. So the wives and the kids are there for a contracted term, whatever his term is, to work 1 or 2 years. And then they usually leave and go somewhere else. But some of them stay longer. So the husbands were all working, and the wives ended up staying at home because it's very, very difficult to get a work permit there. It's not an easy thing. You have to jump through all kinds of hoops. And so usually, and these were professional women. These are like television producers and things that I'm meeting. They're highly intelligent women, but they're staying at home during this time that they're living down there. So I rarely saw the husbands. I would always see the moms. They were doing the drop off. They were doing the pickups. The dads were always working. And so it became coffee dates, and it became lunch dates, and it became, let's go for a walk on the beach. Let's go paddleboarding, or we're meeting at this person's, condo, pool, whatever, with the kids. So it was always the moms with the kids, the moms with the kids. And these people, they just became they were like my angels. They really were. I started forming these friendships with all these different people that were coming into my life that I wasn't expecting that to happen. And it really got me through. It really did. We were there for a year, and then I decided I wasn't ready to come back. So we stayed another year, and then I decided I still wasn't ready to come back. But then I said, okay, I stayed another like 6-7 months. So we were there a total of like a little over 2.5 years. And at that point, Claire was going to be starting kindergarten, official kindergarten in the US. And I said, okay, this is a good starting point for us to get back to, whatever the new normal is going to be. I had my time there. I had made all these great friends, and, Claire's first little teacher for her little pre-K class that she was in, she had pulled me aside within the first couple of weeks that Claire had started. And she said, I kind of know what happened because Claire's told me a couple of things, but she said, it can be very isolating being here. So just know that, we're all here and we're all supporting you. And so right away, it was like just open arms. And then her next teacher that she had at the little school, we go on the first day, and I'm reading the bio of the teacher, and it says children's bereavement specialist. This was her like her little kindergarten teacher. And I was like, what? Children, here I am. I'm on an island with 20,000 people. Like, I don't know, maybe 5,000 of them are expats. And her teacher is a bereavement specialist for children. And I was like, this is just the universe. Man, they just plop people in front of you, right? Here's what you need. It's right here. And so she started seeing Claire on Saturdays. We would do sessions with her. And it just worked out that way. So it was amazing. It was really amazing.
You're right. You just had so many, everything just fit together for you. It's incredible to hear your story and to listen to this. And, what are the chances that the preschool teacher is going to have this expertise to help your daughter? I mean, amazing. It's so
Yeah,
incredible.
I know. It was unbelievable. I could not believe it. I couldn't believe it, but then I could believe it because I'm like, well, there's life for you, that's who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, everything else seemed to be going in, falling into place, or you're putting it into place, or whatever it was. Like you said, the universe, it definitely had your back on all these things for sure.
Yeah.
So after you were there for a little over 2.5 years, and then you moved back to Louisiana. Is that
I did.
you did?
I did. I decided, and that's another funny thing, because it's like you have this whole wide world that's open to you and all these choices, right? Like I could go anywhere. And that's kind of a scary feeling too. But I did decide to go back and be in Louisiana to be closer to my parents, and I have other relatives here too. So ultimately, I had sold my house, and then I was trying to decide where I wanted to live around. There's lots of cute little neighborhoods. I ended up staying with my parents when I first got back. Like I said, they're the best people in the world. And I said, I sold the house and I'm not sure where I want to be. And I'm like, is it okay if we come and stay? And immediately they get out a napkin and they start drawing up plans, because they had a 3-car garage, and they were like, okay, well, they started building out this little like sketch of an apartment thing for us to go and stay. And they did it. So by the time we came back, we moved into this little space above the garage. It was perfect for us. We had our little apartment space, and they were there, super supportive. And I was back working again, and it was just again trying to get settled again, like that lost kind of feeling, like where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And then that was when, probably several months, that was probably almost a year, when I had sold my house. I had 3 storage units full of my furniture and stuff. And while I was in Turks and Caicos, my mom had gone through a couple of my boxes of things, and it was a box that was full of bills, like AT&T bill, whatever. She was going through it, and she found this little letter, and it said Jennifer, and it had a heart over the I. And she was like, oh, that doesn't look like it belongs in here with all the bills. So she took it out, and then she put it on my dresser in our little apartment. And I came home one day and I was cleaning up some things, and I found the little letter. And when I opened it up, it was this love letter that was to me. And it was a 5-page letter, front and back. And it was from my my now husband. But anyway, this letter was written to me when I was 16. And I just remember reading the letter when I was 16, and my thoughts at the time that I was reading it, up in that apartment, I was like, oh my gosh, somebody loves me. Because he signed it, Love, Doug Zwinck. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this letter had survived Hurricane Katrina. It was in a box that was up in my attic. So it had made it through that. I had a box that was full of high school memory things. And I guess it had gotten shuffled around and put in this other thing. Well, my mom found it, put it on the dresser, and then I find it. So Doug and I had met at a church youth gathering back in 1992. So this was like our high school church meeting thing that had happened. Now, he was living at the time in high school, he was living in Michigan. His family was in Ann Arbor. And so this weekend that we had spent, it was a summer weekend in August of 1992. And he had come down with his church group. I had gone to the thing with my church group, and we met in the Superdome. So his group had come in the one aisle, and then my group came in the other aisle. We met in the middle at this church concert in the Superdome. And that weekend we spent 3 days together. And then we had a great time. It was totally innocent church meeting. And then he got on the plane with his friends and flew back to Michigan. But on the plane, he wrote this letter to me. And it was like, I never believed in love at first sight, but blah, blah, blah. Like, he was going on and on and on. And like I said, he signed it, Love, Doug Zwinck. So he had his last name on there. And he put, this is where I live. This is where I go to church. This is where I'm going to college, because he was going a year before me. So anyway, I get this, he mailed it to me. I remember getting the letter and I remember opening it, but I was like, he lives in Michigan. I'm going to LSU. He's going to be going to college. I'm never going to see this guy again. This was it. It was like a fun weekend. That was it. We knew each other for 3 days. Fast forward 20 something years, 23 years. And yeah, so I found the letter and I said, oh my goodness, like, this guy loves me. So I found him on Facebook and I messaged him and I said, I'm sure you don't remember me, but you came down to New Orleans for a church group thing. And he was on Facebook. I messaged him, I sent it, and then he wrote back right away. And he said, I absolutely remember you, Jen. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? So we start going back and forth. He had been divorced and he was living in Chicago. We start talking and communicating. And another really, I guess serendipitous way of saying it is that I started talking to Doug on Friday, and the following Wednesday was when the guy took the plea deal and went to jail. All in the same week.
So you were you were basically then, I'm going to use the word cleared, but you were, that chapter was closed at that point for you. Like you said, like, now,
Yeah.
okay, I can let go of that.
All in the same week. That door closes, that door open immediately. So I was dealing with the DA and trying to again, like, process that part of it. I don't want to say close, it's not closure, but closing that door. And then that happened on Wednesday and Thursday. And then Friday, I was dropping off Claire at school and Doug is texting me, TGIF, haha, like smiley face texting. And I was like, I dropped off Claire and I was bawling, crying in the car. And I remember sitting in the parking lot and I was like, I really like this guy. I can't not talk to him. Thank God for texting, right? Because I texted him right back and I said, great weekend coming, and I'm just crying and I'm a mess, but I could text him. So yeah, that started with that. We started talking and he invited me to go up to Chicago in December. So we had been talking for a couple of months, and then he invited me up to Chicago. He's like, "You should come up here. We should re-meet." That's what we say. We should re-meet. And so we did. I told my parents. I said, "I have a date. It's in Chicago. Can you watch Claire, please?" And I bought a plane ticket. I flew up there it was probably 17 hours, because I said, I don't know if I'm going to like this guy. And, so I flew up there for one day and then I flew back. But we hit it off and just had a blast. And then I was like, this is it. This guy is going to be around. He's going to be around. So, yeah, we started dating. Yeah.
I love this story, and I'm kind of giggling to myself a bit because I have a similar story with my now husband.
Really?
I really do. And it's a story for another day. I don't want to take away from your story. I'll just quickly say that we met years and years ago, just happened to meet. And then we went on our merry ways. And years later, he lived in New Jersey. I lived in Chicago. And I Googled him, and well, let's start with when we met. I lived in Chicago, or in California, and we met in California. We just happened to meet, and he happened to be on a job out there. It was the only time he'd ever been on a job in California. So again, I don't want to tell my whole story, but I'm just laughing to myself because this is so familiar to me, and how things just work out, or whatever the situation is. Like we had moved on, we went our separate ways and married other people and had kids, and had different lives. And then so I love this part of your story because I can so relate to it. And clearly, and I did the same thing. Like we kind of started we started emailing, and then and I called him, and he first said, "No, I don't remember you." And then I was like, "Oh, sorry to bother you," right? So, okay, sorry. And then before he hung up, he said, wait, no, I do, so that initiated, some contact for a good over a year. And then we started texting, and then pretty quickly after we started texting, it was the same thing. Well, why don't you fly out here, or I'll fly out there.
Yeah.
I came out to New Jersey and saw him. And then very quickly after that, within a few months, we were engaged. And within that, 6 months, we were married. So,
oh, wow.
I can so relate to this. And I'm over here just like really chuckling to myself that this is what happened to you. And I mean, clearly you ended up married, and he must have moved to Louisiana with you.
Yes, so he didn't have any children. He was divorced, and he ended up, he proposed. It was 10 months later. So he proposed, and then 10 months later we got married. And then 10 months later was when Penelope was born. So we had a busy few years, just back to back to back. The other crazy thing that happened was we had planned our wedding because of Claire's school schedule. We had planned the wedding for August 5th, 2017. And we didn't realize it at the time, but that was the exact weekend 25 years before was when it was the weekend of August 4th and 5th of 1992. And then we got married 25 years to the day later.
Oh,
and we had planned it and didn't even realize that we had done that. So it was pretty amazing. So yeah, we got married. We decided we were going to move down here. We considered Chicago, but then with my family being here, it just made more sense. So then, especially with Penelope on the way, so that was it's been wild. I'll put it that way. It's been a really unexpected second life, I guess, if you want to call it that. Because like I said in the beginning of this interview, I feel like I can split my life in two. I had that life, and now I have this. I am the same person, but I'm not, I have
Absolutely.
completely changed in many ways. Um, so
Well, and you know, then you've created these things as support groups and your podcast and all these things. And I think it's really amazing for you to take what you learned, to take your journey and create something that can support other women who have been through a similar, nobody has the same experience, but similar situations. And um, I think a lot of people do things because of, for those reasons. They see a need, or maybe you wished you would have had something like that. I mean, you had an incredible support group, it turns out, but how many of them were able to like really identify with what you were going through? And so I think
nobody.
that it's wonderful that you've created these things, the Widow Squad community, and your podcast, the Widow 180. And I think it's amazing. And that you are also, a lot of people, it seems like, and I don't have firsthand experience, I've seen people where this happens, where maybe they lose a loved one, whatever it is, whether it's a spouse or a child or whatever, and they let that define the rest of their lives. And you have, obviously, you took the time to heal, and you took the time to do the things that you needed to do, but you were also then open to having joy again, and having
Hmm.
like you say, have a second life, if that's, if that's what you, how you can look at it, absolutely look at it that way, and another child. And so to heal your daughter as well, so that she has sibling, and then to reconnect with someone who loved you years ago. How
Yeah.
fabulous is that?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I the things that I have learned along the way, um, like I said, the Widow 180 podcast has just started because I was trying to put out these messages of hope and encouragement, and it's helped me so much too. Even years later, I learned something from every single person that I talk to. And just it's a place for me to gather this information, um, and then get it to people who don't have that support. There are just so many people who they just feel so alone, and they're not alone. That's the thing. I need everybody to know, you are not alone, and you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to grieve alone. We are not meant to grieve alone. And then that's why we did the Widow Squad community, is to get everybody together. And then you can say, are you feeling this way too? Yeah. Like, yes, I feel that way too. It's normal. you
Well,
know?
and when you think about it, that's kind of what you do when, at least, when my kids were little, that it's kind of what you do as kind of new parents. Like, oh, I went to the doctor, and what did your doctor? Oh, where are you experiencing this? Oh, well, what they're teething, they're doing whatever. And are we, so you can support each other that way. But I feel like there was probably a void in the grieving area. And so to be able to connect with other women who say, yeah, I feel that way too, or am I really okay if I just want to sit in my bed and cry all day?
Yeah.
And I love that you've
Or
expanded that.
is it okay to move to an island?
Right.
Yes.
Or my husband's dad passed away when they were growing up, and his
Mm,
um unexpectedly, and his mom, from what I hear, the stories I hear, she had 4 kids to raise and whatever. And years later, when she started to date, then there were people who were, oh my gosh, how can you think of dating? And it had been years, according to my husband. So even that, is it okay for me to date? Like, am I okay to date someone? Am I disrespecting my my spouse who's passed away? And I love that you've expanded this into retreats as well, because I think that that's probably really important for people to physically be together and spend those times together and that connection.
Yes, definitely. All the things you just said too about dating. I mean, you get the judgment from outside, but then it's so much internal judgment too. And the guilt. There are layers and layers to that. That's a whole other show.
Yeah, that's a whole nother episode.
But yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm just amazed at what you've done, what you've created, the experience. I mean, not just one experience, all these experiences you've had. And this is really why, I realized in my life that things, don't always go in the straight path that you had hoped. And this is why I called it A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life. And it's frequently not funny things. It's just the unexpected and the whatever. And you had multiple things that went in a different way than you expected. And you created things for yourself. And I love all of this. And I'm so grateful for you coming on the show. And just before we wrap up, it's going to be in the show notes, but tell everyone, we've got your Widow 180 podcast, we've got the Widow Squad, but is there somewhere, a website or Facebook that people can find you easily?
Yes, it's widow180.com. And I do post a lot of blog posts on there as well. So there's some other resources there. And then also I do have courses and programs that I run. The one that I'm doing that starts next week is the Finding Purpose and Meaning After Loss program, which I love to run these programs. Again, it's just to see that transformation in people and to show them what is possible. This is possible for you. That's what fires me up. Obviously, I'm like getting all fired up.
Yeah,
but...
you can see you're like, well, and the thing is that there's, just even as you're saying that, and you're like, oh, I have this program, but there has to be like, okay, so many layers to this, dealing with your children, or finding your purpose, or again, maybe dating. I'm sure there's so much wisdom and support that you can give to women who've had experienced loss like this.
Yeah. And that's what we do in the Widow Squad too. We have our weekly meetings. We usually have a topic. So we do have one coming up that's all about dating. Come with your dating questions. We had one just this last week about goal setting and setting boundaries, just all these different topics that come up that we get in there and we talk. We have a guest speaker that comes once a month on a certain topic. And it's just to have that support, and things constantly come up too. That's the thing, especially with kids. We have a solo mom, I guess little pod is what we call it, but it's all these questions, well, the dad passed away when he was 5 and now he's 7 and he's asking this question, and then now he's 10 and he's asking this question. So it's constant. It doesn't go away. It's just a constant roll of the next state and the next season that you're getting into. And so that's why we're here to help.
It's wonderful what you're doing. Really, really. Again, Jen, I am so grateful for you coming on and sharing your story with us. It's an incredible story. And I also want to thank our listeners for joining us today as well.
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you for having me. This has been amazing. This has been fun. I love your show too.
Thank you so much. I really love this story. I feel like that we need to do another couple episodes because you have so much more.
I know.
But we'll wrap up there for today.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life podcast. For more information, visit my website at www.lauramuirhead.com.